Prater the Ballgame. It's Idaho Sports Talk. It's Wednesday, 5 p.m. You got yourself a Boise State basketball home game tonight against Nevada at 8. You can listen to that on our sister station, 670 a.m. only tonight, beginning coverage at 7:30. Prater, we think, heck, Adam Schefter was just on television 20, 30 minutes ago saying Kellen Moore is the favorite to land the available New Orleans Saints head coaching job. The only one left. That's Schefter saying that. The news yesterday of McCarthy saying, I'm going to wait till next year. He is taking himself from the conversation or the consideration for this job. And, you know, we can open up our hotline, 208-424-9300. But, hey, no jobs, very few, that a coach is going to take over are great situations. There's a reason the last guy's out. But Kellen Moore, we like this, regardless of where the team is, Mike Prater, but let's check out that team if Kellen does, in fact, if he is the favorite, if he does get the gig.
Yeah, let's look at the business side. Let's look at the roster. Let's look at what Kellen Moore inherits. Kellen Moore probably flies to New Orleans either on Sunday or Monday with this team. They're going to be headquartered in Saints land for an entire week. I'm not even sure they could say hello to each other walking down the hallway. Their NFL rules in terms of talking to Kellen Moore next week are so off limits, but it's going to be kind of funny. If I was Kellen Moore, I'd be like Johnny Ballgame when you sneak into Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. You got to peek around the corners, man. You got to check out the locker rooms. You got to check out the office spaces.
Yeah, just because the door's shut doesn't mean you can't try to open it. If it's locked, then it's locked. If it's open, then hey, what's in here?
That's curiosity minds want to know. And Kellen Moore, and we want to know what kind of roster he's going to inherit. So we know he inherits a bad business plan for now. We know he inherits an old man's roster, one of the oldest in the NFL for now. A couple of star players, but I would imagine Kellen Moore going to the Saints, which I think we both fully endorse. It's going to be a lot of work, ball game.
I fully endorse. Yes, this is an NFL job, and that's what Kellen Moore's dream is, an NFL head coaching job. So, yes, could there have been better situations? Sure, but I don't even care. I mean, he's going to get a couple of years, you would think, to work this thing out. He's not going to be a one-and-done coach.
No.
And looking at this roster, Prater, if Kellen Moore does become the Saints head coach, and he walks in there with an offensive line, and I did a lot of research on this. The Saints offensive line last year was graded out about 23rd, 24th out of 32 teams. Not good, but it also wasn't healthy. And I think the numbers were a little skewed because the last 4 games of the season, the Saints were basically playing practice squad players. Throw any of that crap out. But the offensive line Kellen has, think about this. His left tackle was the team's first rounder last year. His right tackle was the team's first rounder 2 seasons ago. The center, Kellen's center is a second rounder. His right guard is a first rounder, and his left guard is an 8-year vet. There are 3 first rounders and a second round of draft capital built on this offensive line. I don't know if they missed on all these picks. I don't know why the Saints offensive line hasn't been good, but these players are young, and these are pieces. These are high-level draft picks that they have invested in. So maybe the offensive line isn't the worst part of the situation. And Prater, if you have a pretty good offensive line, it's tough to be the worst team in the league.
There's a report out there talking about Kellen Moore's coaching staff and talking about his biggest wish list, and this is just the reporter reporting it, would be for Kellen Moore to steal the Eagles' offensive line coach. I forget, Stoutland, I think his name is. They said he's one of the best in the business, and the Eagles' offensive line has certainly been one of the best in a long time. If Kellen Moore can finagle him to New Orleans, that would be the winningest possibility. That'd be the biggest way you could start this. So I'm glad you started with that offensive line.
Yeah.
This reporter kind of felt the same. He thought that there was a 50-50 chance it could happen. We'll see how that plays out. That's good. That's decent. That's promising. That's optimistic. But ball game, there isn't a single Pro Bowl player on this team. There was one replacement. The center, the McCoy kid you talked about, is replacing, ironically, Cam Jurgens, the Eagles center, in the Pro Bowl. Otherwise, the Saints don't have a single Pro Bowl player on this entire roster.
I hear that.
And that's an issue. And obviously, Derek Carr is an issue. Taysom Hill is old. Cam Jordan and some of these defensive guys, Chase Young, certainly aren't as great as they possibly could be. Lots and lots of needs. the $25 million, the cap hit this year in 2025, they're $52 million over. Everybody says Kellen Moore should not go to the Saints because of the cap situation. And right now in 2025, it's gross, it's ugly, and it's bad. But look at 26. And Ballgame, you're the king of the cap, guys. It goes from $52 million over the cap. As it sits right now, it goes to $60 million under the cap. And in 2027, it goes to $221 million under the cap. You know what that tells me? That if Kellen Moore can take the oldest roster, one of the oldest rosters in the NFL, and do a little flip this year and kind of do the rebuild, because this is going to be a 2 to 3 year rebuild, bring in a lot of youth, bring in a lot of young people, and tell them, guys, in 2 years, I'm going to have $220 million to spend. Work your ass off, play your butt off, commit yourself to this organization for the next couple of years, and dude, you're going to get paid.
What do you guys think? Kellen Moore to the Saints. If this is going to happen, Adam Schefter says he is the inside favorite. Adam Schefter reported that earlier this hour, or last hour, and if you guys want to get in and talk to us.
He reported that last night.
But the video we saw was live on SportsCenter. I guess he's just reiterating it.
Yeah, Vegas, in Vegas, they actually, you can bet on this stuff. Vegas made Kellen Moore the betting favorite, and then Adam Schefter last night, as we all knew. Yesterday on the show, we told you, everybody, that this was going to be a Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore situation. Mike McCarthy's gone. Kellen Moore is the favorite.
Yeah, well, if there's any Saints fans out there, too, certainly would love to hear from you guys. As I move on a little bit, you're right. Okay, there's the playmakers. Chris Olave was a first-rounder. That hasn't worked yet.
Nope.
Alvin Kamara, bless his heart, and he's terrific. He's 30 years old. He has 2 years left on his deal, $28 million total. I don't know if you can trade that. You might have to just cut that with the skill position players. Look at the rest of their receivers. They're not even worth naming on this thing. They have to clean house. Okay.
Valdez Scalding.
Oh, God,
he's not a bad 2 or 3.
No, I mean, he had a couple of nice moments.
He's not a bad 2 or 3.
I like the Rashid Shaheed guy. He got hurt, though. Dante Pettis is on their roster. He's capable. I mean, their receiving core sucks. Cedric Wilson. Kellen knows him. He's on the roster. Cedric Wilson is... Cedric Wilson is calling everybody he knows and says, God, I hope it's Kellen. I hope it's Kellen, because he probably then gets to stay on the team. Kind of a weird nugget. Last year with Derek Carr, okay, the Saints were 5-5, okay? It's with Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler starting. They were 0-7. It's a big difference thing, okay? It is. It's a big difference. And one thing I want to add, if he does go to this job and takes the Saints gig, he doesn't have to tussle with Andy Reid, okay? He gets Todd Bowles, Raheem Morris, and Dave Canales. They haven't won jack or squat as a head coach. Todd Bowles was coordinator for the Bucks when Brady was there. Raheem Morris, he's never won anything. He's been fired. Dave Canales, look at the other quarterbacks that Kellen Moore will be facing. Baker Mayfield's the best one. Okay, I can manage that. I don't have stinking Allen, Lamar, or Mahomes I got to tussle with twice a year. I got a rookie, Michael Penix, another rookie essentially, and Bryce Young. Like this division is there in a couple of years. Prater, I really do believe that. And their salary cap is awful. They're 32 out of 32. They are
for 1 year only.
Yes.
And then they go from 32 to first in 2 years.
In 2 years, because no one's under contract in 2 years. So Kellen will get to relive that. We have Brandon on the line. Apparently, JP says he is a Saints fan, so we appreciate you calling, Prater. There is a Saints fan in Boise.
Nice.
Brandon, how are you feeling about all this, B?
I don't think I've ever been more excited about a Saints head coach change since, I would say, Sean Payton. I feel like this is that exciting.
Yep, I love it, man. What do you have for us, man?
Well, I feel like we're about to go through a huge transition because that year we did the same thing. We completely just overhauled our roster, completely changed the spec from Jim Haslett to Sean Payton. And I think that we're going to do the same thing with this. The only problem is we're in cap hell, but I think once we get out of that, but it seems like every year we're like this, and then they somehow manage to find $20 million in cap space.
Absolutely.
Oof.
Yeah, appreciate the
Gotta
call.
breathe.
There's Brandon right there. Good stuff from a Saints fan.
Yeah, eventually you got to stop chasing the cash. Kind of like in fantasy, you got to stop chasing last week's points, and that's always going to come back and bite you. But you got to do what you got to do. I mean, the Saints aren't. Kellen Moore is not going to take the Saints to the playoffs in year one. He's going to fight for playoffs in year two. This is a 3-year build. He's probably, even though there's not a lot of star power on this offensive roster, I think based on what I was reading from the Saints reporters and the draft, they're going to chase an edge rusher and a cornerback right off the bat. They draft number 9, so there's a chance to make your football team a little bit better with number 9 in this draft. And I see a lot of people mocking the edge draft or a cornerback, seeing how that plays out. Maybe a wide receiver in there. So, I don't know. I don't know what kind of free agent game you can go out and play. I know
They don't have any money to spend. They're over the cap.
They over the cap, but you could probably figure some of that stuff. I think I think you have to have a backup quarterback. I have no problem with Derek Carr, and I don't know what you can do with Spencer Rattler. He's terrible, but you probably are stuck with him. So you probably don't go out and get a free agent quarterback. That's not a priority moving forward.
Draft somebody to develop, possibly.
Maybe.
I don't know where Kellen. Maybe Kellen has a guy that he's always said, if I get a gig, I'm going to bring this guy on, kind of a Brett Rippon. He gets jobs and has an opportunity there. I don't know if he's going to play. I would like to see this Saints team. I mean, they have an offensive line that they have heavily invested in. At pick 9, you draft Ashton Genty, and you put him behind that line, and Derek Carr, who was 5-5 with this exact same team last year, is your quarterback. You get a good year out of Olave and the receivers because Genty is going to pop the second he becomes an NFL running back. I fully believe that. I don't care about a corner and a pass rusher I care about, but Ashton Genty, I think, would be transformational in New Orleans. He would be such a star, and they need him. He could even work behind or help Kamara and extend his career a little bit as a playmaker.
This is why you'd be a terrible head coach.
Ashton Genty's perfect for this team.
This is why you'd be a horrible head coach. All your decisions are based on emotions. Just because of the Boise State connection?
No, if it wasn't even Ashton Genty, I'd say, hey, take a running back here. Look at this thing. Look at this offensive line. I'm okay at quarterback. I have a first-round wide receiver that needs to be my receiver 1. He's Chris Olave. That's going to happen. I need a back, and I need a face, and I need a star. And the running back position is coming back, and nobody knows that better than the dude who just was, the play-calling architect of the most recent 2,000-yard rusher in Saquon Barkley. Kellen, make this happen. And if that does happen, Prater, if Kellen's the coach of the Saints and Ashton Genty gets drafted in the first round, I'm going to have to call you and say, dude, I'm moving to New Orleans and I'm going to become a painter or something, and I'm going to watch the Saints every day.
All right.
You don't think Genty would be a good fit? Yeah.
No, I don't. When you have as many needs as the Saints do, I'm chasing edge rushers and cornerbacks. I need to fix that defense first. Kamara, until I get out of cap hell, Kamara is going to be perfectly fine for me. I got no problem with that, especially if you think you can get this offensive line healthy. That's not a problem. So I'm not chasing star power. I'm chasing needs. I'm not chasing emotions. I'm chasing defense, and that's exactly what this Saints team needs. So I'm not telling you it wouldn't be a great story. I suspect Kellen Moore might even like Taysom Hill better than Ashton Genty.
No, I doubt that, but I'm sure he likes Taysom. I can't wait to see what Kellen Moore does with Taysom Hill.
He becomes a coach on the field.
Yeah.
He becomes a brother off the football field. There's a lot of things about Taysom Hill and Kellen Moore in terms of that kind of a relationship. But the Genty thing would be a fantastic story, but the Saints don't need a running back. And going for a running back at number 9 when you have so many other different needs,
it'd be a risk. It would be a risk.
They
do need a lot of pieces, obviously. I'd have to see how many picks they have, too. I don't know if they've given away a couple of draft picks here again.
This is one of the worst quarterback classes in the history of the NFL draft.
Yep.
It's one of the deepest running back classes in the history of the NFL draft. There's 20 to 30 running backs that could go in this year's draft. Ashton Genty obviously is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guarantee he can stay number 1. Numbers 2, it's almost like if I could take Ashton Genty or the field, 29 other running backs, and what kind of success they might have in the NFL, I might take the field.
Of course you would. Yes, you have to in that bet. Like, if you're going to say of all the running backs in this draft, who's going to have the most rushing yards in their career? Ashton Genty or any other drafted running back. I'd take my chances that any other drafted running back. Injuries, bad team, so much stuff can happen on that.
And you could get a guy in the second or third round and have him run behind Kamara for a couple of years and give him the rookie contract while you try to get out from underneath this cap hell.
Yep, and there will be those backs that are going on day 2 and day 3 that are starting as rookies. It happens every single year. But, man, what a story that would be, Kellen, with Ashton Genty. What's your hunch on the basketball game tonight? Boise State, Nevada, 7.5-point favorites, both teams in total desperation mode. Nevada might even be gone from desperation mode. I don't know what type of mode they're in right now. But what is your hunch that happens tonight? You haven't watched this team play. They haven't played in a week. Leon said everything every which way. What's this team going to look like? We want your hunch. Call 208-424-9300 and give it to us. Boise State Hoops tonight. Prater in the ball game.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is